Why did you boo? What was that about? What was the reason for you making your own protest there and then? Anti-taking the knee. Why did you boo? And also, and a follow-up question to that is it likely to happen tomorrow night when Queen's Park Rangers come calling? Danny, what was your take on it?
Well, at first I was, of course, disgusted because I didn't expect it. I don't know whether other people expected or not. I hadn't thought that this would happen. There was so much euphoria about fans getting back inside the stadium. That statement you read is pretty crucial to me, in the fact that if the supporters are going to... There is a narrative that I think... I mean, Simon's been talking to some Millwall fans more than I, so we'll wait and see what they say. But I think the narrative is going to be that their booing was more against the BLM as a political movement rather than racism.
Right.
Now, that suggests to me that a lot of them didn't see the statement, and if they did, they think, go to hell to their own players anyway. They're not going to listen to that. They'll do what they want. And then, you know, furthermore, they're in a position where, well, it's a difficult one because the message has to be uniform. You know, everybody has to be on the same page.
Yeah.
No to racism is the message. If you have a certain section of the Millwall fans who want to boo against the political movement, then where have they been for the last 6 months when all players who've been doing this have been saying the same thing? It's nothing to do with that. We're trying to stamp out racism here. So I was shocked. I think it's a shame that we're having to talk about this when there was so much good about the fans being back. But we do have to address it when we have this behaviour.
Well, that's right, Danny. And I think you are completely right to focus on that statement by the Millwall players, Simon, pre-match. The key line in it for me, we wish to make clear that taking the knee for us is in no way representative of any agreement with political messaging or ideology. So why did they boo? Simon, why did they boo? You put that very question out on your Twitter feed last night. You got a response from Millwall fans. What did they say to you? Incidentally, we want to hear from Millwall fans who were there on Saturday and booed, but I'll invite you to call us in a minute. So what have they said to you, Simon? Why did they boo?
Well, look, I mean, the first thing is I've maintained a sentiment for forever and a day that I don't believe that societal and political issues should be represented on the pitch. And I've said that consistently. If you look at the framework of the reaction to this, the automatic leap to assumption, I don't know, neither do you, Jim, and neither do people that have assumed that centred in this is racism at the reaction. I don't know whether people booed anti-discrimination, whether they take from this that they were booing anti-discrimination, diversity or inclusion, or whether people were booing the idea that BLM as a brand, right, as a moniker, as a strapline, as a title, as a set of parameters, has a variety of different meanings. It has an ambiguity about it which causes confusion. The players put a statement out on Friday. Online, a website called Millwall Online put an alternative statement out about their view of the players' response and the understanding that they have of their viewpoint of what this means to the fans. Fans have not been inside stadiums for 9 months. Fans have sat there in society being force-fed people's opinions, whether it's about COVID, whether it's about economics, whether it's about BLM, whether it's about the way they live their lives, what jobs they're losing, how their economic situation is. And perhaps they don't want to go into football stadiums and have another situation where people are telling them or trying to preach to them how they should think.
Yeah, well, don't go, though.
I listened to a journalist on LBC called Majid Nawaz who had some very interesting opinions about this, and he talked about his viewpoint was that they weren't booing black players and they weren't booing anti-racism and inclusion. They were booing the method of delivery, which is an association. Now, if you close your eyes, Jim, and honestly I want you to do this, and you think of BLM, do you solely think of anti-discrimination? Do you solely think of inclusion and diversity? Or do you perhaps think of the political movement as well? Do you perhaps think of the cenotaph with the burning flag or people defacing statues in London? Do they come into your mind as well? Because if the answer is
no, they don't.
Well, okay, Jim.
I think of anti-discrimination, and I'm absolutely with the Millwall fans
when you think of BLM,
on Friday when they say it is purely about tackling discrimination.
So when you think of BLM as a motive, Black Lives Matter. None of these other factors come into your thinking, because I think most people think that they do. Now, that then makes that particular brand slightly toxic, and the message should be clearer. Troy Townsend spoke very articulately this morning about messaging. He spoke about the lack of clarity around messaging. The football family has done an incredibly poor job about managing the situation. You have to be a special brand of pathetic organisation if you are the poster boys for racism or anti-racism in this country, in a campaign like Kick It Out, and you cannot centralise your message and make sure that everybody understands it. BLM is a toxic brand. It has ambiguity attached to it for the reasons that I lay out. And specifically in London, if you're a Londoner, you're very proud and have a great deal of heritage of your town. It doesn't surprise me to some extent there's an element of pushback given the ambiguity around it.
Element of pushback? Is that what you mean about 2000
Simon, are you trying to say the message is not clear, it's cloudy?
Of course it's not clear. Of course the messaging around BLM
But the Millwall players made their message clear on Friday.
But it also isn't. And the Millwall fans pushed their message back as well.
The Millwall players made their message clear on Friday.
I've also spent a lot of time over the weekend looking at this. You've got to remember that this is a club that I know very, very well. It's a club that I grew up from around the corner. We're big rivals. And don't get me wrong, their fans are some of the most divisive sods I've ever come across and gave me barrel loads of abuse. Their owner, former owner, is a very close friend of mine, and ultimately is an immigrant himself, so understands the dynamics of that club, and he does not believe that this fan base or this club per se is steeped in racism. Every club has an element of racist imbeciles in it. Right?
Yes,
you have to be very unlucky to have got the entire section of Millwall fans that came to that game being racist. This is a club that over the last 10 years has voted their player of the year, a black player of the year, 5 times out of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
This is a pushback to some extent about people's perception of what BLM represents, and what football should have done better is translate the message more clearly so that we do not have the ambiguity around an organisation.
So what you're saying is you have an understanding as to why these 2,000 booed on Saturday?
No.
Are they
Jim,
the only group of supporters who have the intellect?
I have a perception. You don't know. Danny doesn't know, and neither does everybody that jumped on the bandwagon on Saturday and immediately went racism.
But,
no,
it totally flies in the face of what the Millwall players said on Friday. And for those who don't know, the Millwall players, as we head into this break, said on Friday, we wish to make clear that taking the knee for us is in no way representative of any agreement with political messaging or ideology. It is purely about tackling discrimination. End of. So what did those who were booing on Saturday at 3 o'clock, what did they not get about that from their own players?